big news. And it just gets bigger as it stands right now at recording at 9 a.m. So we woke up to hear that Alphonso Davies has done his ACL. Horrendous news. Did it in the US match. Obviously, he left around 12 minutes, went off the pitch. Post-match, Biello, and then Jesse Marsch too. The next day said, no, we don't think it's too serious. Should be fine. Turns out it's not fine. It's a tear. He's having surgery today, out for months. We'll talk about what an ACL looks like as far as the injuries, the degrees, but he's having surgery today. It's awful news for Alphonso Davies, number one, also for his club, Bayern Munich, and of course for Canada. But then the plot thickens. One Soccer is reporting a comment from Alphonso's agent, Nadal, who is saying, I'm very disappointed Alphonso was not 100% after the Mexico game, and it was planned that he was not going to start against the USA on Saturday night. The expectation was he would not be in the 11. As a captain, I feel he was pressured to start the game by the coach. Alphonso is not the kind of guy to say no in those moments. He ended up playing, and look what happened. Canada Soccer needs to do a better job managing these players, in my opinion. Alphonso is down and obviously really disappointed about his injury. Thankfully, he is in wonderful hands with a world-class group at Bayern who will take great care of him. He's expected to have the surgery within the next 24 hours. What are you laughing at, Wonger?
The verbiage, how Bayern is being compared to Canada, whether it's pretty obvious. He's saying, Bayern will take care of him, and Canada didn't. That's why.
The club gave him a big old fat contract a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right. I don't like it when you hear from agents and it comes from their mouths, not necessarily from the mouth of Alphonso Davies, because they are some significantly strong allegations against Jesse Marsch and his coaching staff. We haven't heard from Canada Soccer yet. I've reached out. We hope to hear something at some point, hopefully within the next hour or so of this podcast, how they react to this. Because, Dubs, let's start with you. When an agent comes out and says such things, naturally the fan base is going to be targeting Canada Soccer now. Man, you've broken our guy. But these didn't come necessarily from Fonzie's lips. I hope he signed off on these. Otherwise, there's a big problem between agent and client.
Yeah, and the issue for me is that because it's from Fonzie's agent, you assume that he signed off on it. Mm-hmm. But then the allegations are so damning that you hope that he didn't, right? So it's the truth lies in between those two statements. So I'm sure Alphonso Davies, the player, is bitterly disappointed, gutted, angry, all sorts of emotions, right? But that statement to me implies that he had no agency in the decision, or a little bit, but it says as a captain, and forgive me if it's not verbatim, but that he was forced into playing, or that there was some sort of coercion, or that his status as captain led him to have very little decision or very little say in the decision. And I think that is the bit that I have the most issue with. I mean, what Wonger is saying is, he's very plain in his words by saying Bayern's going to take care of him. Canada didn't. That is clear. And that's tricky to navigate, obviously, because you're Canada's captain. But to say that, there was not a conversation or there wasn't discourse between the captain, Alphonso Davies, Jesse Marsch, the manager of Canada, and the medical staff, or if there was, and then they still went against his best interests and his opinion and how he was feeling about it, like, I have a really hard time believing that.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, let me ask you this.
And definitely when you look at somebody like Greg Bay, who is a head physio there with the Canadian program, knowing him as I do for years, I mean, it's different when you're signing somebody and the physio is involved in the signing for a professional club. They're working for the club. They're going to make the decision on the back of the club. Once they make that move into that club, and then even international, they have to be aware that they are working for the player and the best interest of the player and his future. And I generally think that that's what the case is. I don't think there's any pressure put on Alphonso to play the game. If he wasn't ready to go and he wasn't feeling right, he would say so. It's an injury that we see a lot, and I don't think it has anything to do with him being previously injured coming into it. Tell me if I'm wrong, but
it's a third place match. I know it's the States. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to risk their best player and the relationship they have with his club by playing an injured player in that match. Now, Jimmy, there was speculation about a niggle. Maybe it was a high hamstring injury. We're not entirely sure what it was.
No, it was.
It was that?
Yeah, he had a hamstring that was a little bit tight, but he was fine to play.
Now, tell me that I'm not a doctor. I haven't played the game at this level. Can a weakened hamstring cause issues in the knee?
No, I think it was just the way that he moved and the way that he fell that triggered the ACL. I don't think it had anything to do with the hamstring. I mean, look, for the agent to get involved and stay out of it. Honestly, stay out of it. Just do your contracts and leave the rest of the clubs, the international organizations and the physios, the doctors, medical staff. That's their jobs. Your job is to do contracts.
yeah.
I read, from Bayern, the sporting director said, look, there's always risk when players go to international duty. That's part of it. Everybody knows that when your players leave and they go on international duty, there's an off chance that a player could get injured. It's football. That's the way it works. And for Bayern saying, look, when he comes back home, we've got some of the best doctors. We're going to look after him and we'll take care of him and make sure that he's on the right path to recovery. Right? It's the way that it works.
My bet is that this agent has no idea, no clue really how football works, club and country. He's just speculating.
Of course. What do you think? The medical staff are phoning the agent and giving him updates?
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works. The only people that they'll be in contact with would be people from Bayern, their medical staff, and they'll be talking to him.
Right, but he's in contact with Alphonso Davies.
What? The agent?
The agent, yeah.
Yeah.
The allegations he makes are coming, you would assume, from what he's heard from Alphonso, who, according to these statements, may have felt coerced and pressured, unless the agent's just going rogue here, having not spoken to Fonzie and is emotional and is just pissed off with Canada for this happening on international duty. There's so much we don't know right now, but it's not as if he wouldn't know the situation. His client is Alphonso Davies.
I think it looks really bad on Fonzie right now.
Yeah.
Even if there might be some truth to it, because we won't ever really know, right? But I think you have to assume that the medical staff, Greg Bay, Jesse Marsh, Fonzie himself did their due diligence to make sure, as you're saying, it was a third place match, not that it was meaningless. Obviously, he wants to play as a player. Sometimes you have to be talked off that ledge, right? So I would argue that was probably, if I had to infer or guess what was happening in that room, is that Greg Bay and the medical staff was saying, Fonzie, maybe it's best if you just sit this one out. But he's wearing the armband. He wants to compete, and you have to pull back on that. But regardless of what it is, I think it's a really bad look because he's the captain, because he's the face of this team, because he's world class. People are paying attention to this. And now, optically, it looks fucking horrible for Canada Soccer and Marsh, because it's saying they're mismanaging this guy, this type of talent. So maybe is there a reluctance now? Is the trickle-down effect that, they're obligated as clubs to release these players for international duty, but maybe there's not full confidence when these players leave now and go and play in for Canada, even if it's smoothed over, even if there is a statement and they walk it back. The damage is done for me at this point.
Are we reading into this a little bit too much? It was an ACL. You didn't have an ACL injury. So I don't understand what the issue is. It's just the way that he fell. That's
it's a brand new injury.
It's a brand new injury. It's not like
that's why I brought it up. Can
I don't understand what the issue is here.
Well,
but are you more prone to knee injuries with a tweaked hammy? Is my question. I don't know.
ACL injuries are going to happen regardless. So
Yes.
Jimmy, you're right in saying that it's the way that you land, it's the mechanism of injury, it's a knock, it's the way that the knee or the angle of it, right? At the impact, whether it's a collision or coming together, or it happens, ACL injuries more than you think, where players are by themselves, right? And it just happens. But then you delve more deeply into it, and it's an imbalance between your quad strength and your hamstring strength. If he has a tendency towards, and again, I'm going to say I'm not a physiotherapist, but if you have an imbalance between the strength of your quads, the strength of your hamstrings are your decelerators. So like when you come, you slow down, you're coming into these tackles or turns or cuts, your hamstrings are the ones doing the work. So if his hamstring is less equipped to decelerate, then it might point to maybe an increased risk for. It still doesn't mean that it's consequential, or what's the word that I'm looking for? There's a significant relationship between the fact that he had a hamstring injury and the fact that he did his ACL. You won't ever know.
No.
But to say, was he compensating? Was he moving slightly differently to be more protective of that sort of perennial hamstring issue that he has? Perhaps. But, I think what they're saying, and again, I'm not defending it because I think, again, it's a shitty statement by his agent. But if he wasn't 100%, or if actually the flip side, if he was 100%, does the injury happen? Right? That's their camp. That's their view of it. And he wasn't protected by Canada Soccer. That's what the agent's saying.
And although he's only 24 years of age, the guy's played 300 professional games already.
Yeah.
He knows his body.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And he's mature enough to make a decision on his own. I don't think this has anything to do with the CSA and the coaching staff or the medicals.
I agree.
What does coerce mean, right?
And you know what it's like as well. You've played an awful lot of games. I don't think anybody on that pitch was 100%. You always have niggles when you go into a match.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact of football, just the wear and tear, the grind. You are never 100% fit. You've always got something.
And it didn't look that bad. I actually thought Alistair Johnson, when he went down,
Mm-hmm.
I was more concerned about that.
Yeah, me as well.
He looked in bad shape, but it was just a knock. But Alfonso, it didn't look that bad at all.
Neither Morrow or Jesse are going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we don't think it's serious." If they think it's serious, they just wouldn't do that, right?
No.
It's one of those weird ones, and often with ACLs, you hear it over and over again. It's not till after the fact you realize, "Oh man, the scam shows it's torn. I'm done." It's a strange injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
Canada play well without Alphonso Davies.
Don't know if it's the time to bring it up, though, Forrest.
Well, they do when they have Sam Adekubi at their disposal, but he's constantly hurt as well right now. Fullback is not the area of depth for this team, right? We saw Johnston step in and do an amazing job on that left-hand side, but really you want Alistair on the right-hand side. Who's the next guy in the depth chart when Sam's hurt? Basong, he's just been called in. He's uncapped, right?
Yeah, well, Richie as well, right? Did you mention
Yeah, Richie, there you go.
Yeah,
Richie.
Richie.
Who's hurt as well.
Can I circle back to what Dub said too? I mean, I want the take on the agency level and whether or not an agent is the spokesperson for the athlete, whether or not we want that to be the case. Yes, we'd love to hear from Fonzie, but he is the agent, which means he is his mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
So he signed off on this. You have to think that Fonzie read this, knew that it was. Where is his agency going back to? And then the next question is, are these new athletes surrounded by agents? Do they lack a level of maturity to say, hey, I can't play, dude. I'm sorry. I want to play. Or I'm going to play and accept every risk and play it that way, which is, yeah, I would have got hurt no matter what I did. It's just the luck of the game. You get hurt playing sports. Can we not just make it that simple? And that would have been a much better approach in my kind of communications expertise.
Mm-hmm. I'd certainly be telling my agent to keep quiet, stay out of it.
Unless this is exactly what he wanted.
Correct. Yeah. Which we just don't know.
I mean, I assume and I hope there's going to be a strong retort from Canada Soccer. There has to be. because otherwise they come off looking extremely poor here. If you take it for the word of the agent, which a lot of people will. This is another example, another excuse for people to point fingers at Canada soccer. Jan, it's been going too well for too long. Thank Christ. Now we got a scandal. That's what people will be thinking, though.
It was a 9-month honeymoon, eh, Sharms?
Yeah. Hey, honeymoon's over now, pal.
It's tricky, though, isn't it? Though, from Canada Soccer standpoint, you have to push back because it's your reputation. While it's sullied, we know it's spotty recently, right? It hasn't been smooth sailing for a long time for Canada Soccer. But for all those reasons that I said before, is you have to stand up here and say, like, this was not the case, to stand up for the reputations of your Jesse Marshes, of your Greg Bays, of the entire medical staff, right? But then at the same time, you can't condemn Alphonso Davies. You can condemn the statement, but you have to be nuanced enough that it's sweeping, you come down hard and to say this is not what happened, but Fonzie's still our captain. So it's a delicate walk.
Dubs, during the tournament, we were kind of, I wouldn't say we were arguing back and forth, but you were saying how Jesse Marsh was so positive after Mexico because he was shielding his players, protecting his players. And I was saying, I'm sick and tired of that. I want some guy to be, very forthright and hold these guys accountable. Well, if he feels he's got to protect his players publicly, then maybe they are a team that needs to be a little bit coddled, right? So that makes Canada Soccer in, like you said, an extremely uncomfortable position now. How do you defend yourself while at the same time making sure your captain comes off okay? It comes down to Fonzie, really, doesn't it? I mean, is he going to come out with a statement, an actual statement?
Or
is it
where this goes, I guess?
Yeah. Is it common for a player to not know whether he's starting the night before? Jimmy?
If you're injured.
Yeah, I mean,
just see how you feel in the morning. If you're good to go, you're good to go.
Yeah, but you actually have fitness tests before you can play. They don't just say, okay, do you feel good? Yeah, okay, come play. They'll actually do a fitness test with you. They'll test out your hamstrings or your thigh injury, whatever it is. They'll put you on the pitch and make you do strides and make you sprint to see how you handle it. And if you get through the fitness test, then you'll play. But, going back to what you're saying, Sharms, I mean, really, do you have to question or respond to an agent saying anything? I think it'd be completely different if it was Bayern Munich saying something. Mm-hmm. Then I think the CSA, absolutely, you have to. But an agent, the CSA's got to respond to that? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Why do you have to give them the credibility and be like, yeah, we have to respond to your statement? I wouldn't.
First thing
especially if you've got a good relationship with Bayern Munich and they know exactly what's happening. I think the two organizations will have the conversations, not an agent.
I think you'd be naive to think that the medical staff for Canada Soccer weren't already consulting the medical staff for Bayern Munich.
Exactly.
Right. That was already 100%. I can be certain, or we can be certain, that those conversations were happening. There was a dialogue there.
Yeah.
Immediately.
100%.
Yeah, and Bayern Munich aren't known for keeping themselves to themselves. If they were really upset and concerned about this, they'd come out and they'd hammer Canada. And maybe they will, but at this point they haven't. And that's what we can read on, right?
Fonzie was injured too, right? Before 3 weeks going into this camp, right? Into this international break. I think he had 3 weeks off.
He'd been hurt, yeah. And then he had muscle fatigue in the previous window as well and missed that. Yeah.
So going back to your Bayern and Canada medical staff, it would seem that he got sign off from Bayern club, right?
Yeah,
That's who make that. Yeah.
Bayern would never let him go,
right?
If he wasn't 100%, never.
Right, and that was like Richie, because I remember Richie Larea telling us at that Canada Soccer event that it's TFC who says whether he's fit or not, and then he ended up going over to London, I think, to see a specialist on his injury. So everything you're saying sounds very succinct and like part of the process.
Yeah, sticking to protocol.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the agent hopes to gain from this. There's nothing.
You keep saying the agent. I'm going to tell you that he's his agent. This is his job to relay information. So whatever spin,
yes, it's not his PR guy. He's his agent.
That's not an agent's job.
Some agents take that as part of their, unless Fonzie comes back within an hour or 2 hours and says, I did not have him say anything, it will be within, whether or not he likes it or not, Fonzie, this is what Fonzie says because it's his agent. And unless he literally just says, I never gave him permission to do that, and he has to do it quickly, and say, I never signed off on this. He stepped over the bounds. I gave him some little information about I'm not sure whether I was fit, and he has expounded on that and put me in this position. Unless he does that, these are Fonzie's words. That's what I'm going to tell you as far as the public, how I would read it if this was my business, any of that sort. Just telling you.
It's not the agent's job. The agent wouldn't have said anything, but he got a phone call from somebody asking him questions. And so then he's just being busy now. I think he's just looking for a little bit of publicity. I didn't even know who his agent was until he actually put that statement out.
Track that agent
probably
down.
get a few more players now.
I like what you're saying though, Wonger, because I, as a fan of Canada soccer, as a fan of Alphonso Davies, I want there to be a delineation between Fonzie and his agent. But what you're saying, it's one and the same. He's the mouthpiece. These are Fonzie's words.
Until he says otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
No,
now,
right.
We use the word zeitgeist a lot. It's in the zeitgeist already. Right?
And to that end, Jimmy, you were saying before, you're like, if I'm Canada soccer, I don't respond. I don't think they have the luxury of not responding, because you're saying then it gives it more credence because they choose to respond to it. But I think it's so big because it's Fonzie. I think that their hand is forced. I think they have to respond to it.
I don't agree.
Perhaps.
You don't think so?
No.
You think they're best to stay quiet?
I wouldn't. The hell am I responding to an agent for? I respond to Bayern.
You're in the bubble though, Jimmy. You know how this works. You think, and you probably are right, that agents aren't supposed to make these comments. No one else knows that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The way I read it, agents, people and PR, a lot of times there's 5-6 different agents. I totally agree. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes I've met athletes with only one spokesperson.
So, and if you take the agent out of the equation, like what Wonger's saying, Jimmy, I totally understand your point. I think it's a valid one. It's a really good one. Don't answer it, because that gives it more attention. That gives it more eyeballs, right? It stays in that zeitgeist for longer.
Yeah.
But I just think that you almost have to, because if you read that, if that's Alphonso Davies' statement, which is what it is, which is Wonger made a really good point himself, saying they're one and the same. Those are Fonzie's words as his agent. He's the spokesperson. He's the mouthpiece. If there's a statement by Alphonso Davies saying exactly what the agent said, if you're Canada soccer, you're forced to respond, are you not?
Well, I think because it's out there now, whether he should or shouldn't have, it's out there. We're talking about it. Every soccer podcast, TV show, or one of them out there will be talking about this today, and it's going to go viral throughout the webosphere.
We're ambulance chasers, though, Sharms, you and I.
Yes, absolutely. This will be a good clickball for sure.
Well, I felt really guilty about the 5-minute piece that I put up yesterday about is Fonzie trying to do too much for Canada. And then I went, oh God, that's horrible timing. Felt like a ding.
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh no.
It seems like you did do too much. Yeah.
And then Craig brought it up again today, so he can be an ambulance chaser too with us, Sharms.
But listen, the bottom line is it's a crushing blow for Canada and for his club. So he's going to miss the Club World Cup this summer. Was it at least 6 months, isn't it, for an ACL? I know there's different variations of ACLs, but if he's having surgery, they said it's a tear. So say it's 6 months.
Almost
6 months is fast.
Turns for an ACL. It's almost always surgery.
Is it?
Partial tear,
partial
surgery.
Tear?
Yep.
Okay.
Regardless.
Because they didn't use the word rupture, which is good, right?
Yeah, but it's still an ACL. An ACL is an ACL is an ACL. So it's 6 months, I think, best case scenario.
So he's back to start next season, fingers crossed. But at least it sounds like more likely it'll be early next season, the return.
Yeah. And for those people who are saying, oh, it didn't look too bad, ACLs can, different athletes have different response to that injury, where some it looks like a limp, some it's screaming in pain and crying, and howling, and others it's, hey, I'm going to take 3 free throws, and then realize, hey, I'm not going to play on that anymore. So you can't tell by his reaction that he did or didn't blow out his knee, because that's what it's a different response from all athletes.